1856, Canton Harbor. Chinese authorities board a vessel called the Arrow in search of pirates, unaware this routine police action will ignite a global conflict. The British response is sudden and explosive. Officials characterize the boarding as an intolerable insult to the flag, demanding a full apology before launching war. But the legal justification for this war was a lie. The Arrow's British registry license had actually expired 11 days earlier, meaning the ship was legally a Chinese vessel when it was boarded. This detail was so scandalous that it fractured the British Parliament. Even within London, many representatives openly condemned the military's actions as a violent overreaction. Captain Tyler, a British officer, decided to go public with the truth. In this 1857 pamphlet, he asked a pointed question: was this a matter of British honor or a total national disgrace? Looking at Tyler's evidence here, he highlights the real causes of the quarrel. He states clearly that the ship had no right to British protection and that the government's representatives essentially manufactured the conflict. The entire war effort functioned as a smokescreen, using a perceived insult to the flag to protect a highly illegal economic enterprise. To see what was actually being protected, our geographic focus shifts to the vast agricultural fields of Bengal and Bombay. Here, the East India Company ran a ruthless, state-managed supply chain. They forced native farmers to cultivate poppies and extracted the juice at fixed rates, leaving the cultivators with little choice and even less profit. British agents then processed and flavored the drug specifically to appeal to the illegal Chinese market, ensuring a steady demand for their illicit exports. This was a colossal financial operation, generating millions of pounds in revenue for the British Crown every year. Table 6 reveals the staggering scale of this revenue. Looking at the net receipts between 1840 and 1854, the profits grew so large that they eventually funded roughly 1/6 of the entire Indian Empire's budget. When we chart this export volume over 50 years, we see an exponential surge. What began as a minor trade in 1800 reached a peak of 80,000 chests by 1855, flying China with more of the drug than ever before. The British government had transitioned into an active participant in the trade, operating what was effectively the world's most lucrative state-run drug cartel. Transporting this volume required a sophisticated smuggling network. The British used high-speed clipper ships to outrun Chinese patrols and deliver their cargo to the coast. The drugs were offloaded into receiving ships anchored in harbors like this one, then moved inland in total defiance of the imperial Chinese government's bans. This trade had a devastating human cost. As addiction spread, it physically and mentally dismantled the lives of those it touched. Contemporary accounts in this source describe an addiction epidemic that enslaved the lowest classes. Victims suffered a periodical longing for the pipe, becoming unequal to any exertion once the drug took hold. The macroeconomic damage was equally severe. China's silver reserves were drained to pay for the addiction, effectively crippling the national economy to fill British coffers. This was the grim reality of the trade. British financial supremacy was built upon the systemic, deliberate destruction of a foreign population. There is a profound irony in how Britain viewed its trade with China. At home, the British public enjoyed tea as a harmless daily comfort, a refreshing gift from the East. On page 27, Captain Tyler points out the brutal hypocrisy. While China presided a harmless beverage, Britain incited a smuggling trade for a life-destroying poison, celebrating the cup that cheers but not inebriates, while simultaneously poisoning the Chinese people. This greed stood in direct contrast to the situation of the Chinese emperor. He was facing internal rebellions and a bankrupt treasury, yet he remained steadfast in his refusal to profit from the trade. Here in the text, we see the emperor's final moral stand. Despite his nation's ruin, he refused to legalize or tax the drug, stating that nothing will induce me to derive a revenue from the vice and misery of my people. Captain Tyler used this contrast to demand that the British public end this national disgrace before any further treaties were signed in their name. The historical legacy of these conflicts reveals a dark reality. A civilized empire chose to deploy its full military might solely to protect the profits of a state-run narco-monopoly.